'cause it's the end of time.
Hello everybody, this is Wolf again. This is video 2. This one is going to be on SPT Philosophy. If you watched the last video, the introductory video, we covered what SPT is, and that is Survival, Prepping, and Tactics. This video is going to be about, and we talked about why you'd want to get into SPT, I guess I should say. This video is going to be about different philosophies of SPT. What are your end goals? I think that's very important to think about. Everybody says, "Oh, I'll be ready. Oh, I'll be ready." You need to have a plan set in action. If you have, a spouse or a significant other, you need to discuss that plan with them. Make sure that they're on board. They understand why and what you're wanting to do, and your goals. So I think that's the first thing, is to really establish what your goals are. Let's just throw out some hypothetical scenarios. Number 1, government turns on us. Number 2, foreign invasion. And number 3, just for the wackos, zombie apocalypse. Not saying I think it's going to happen, saying it's possible. Because, well, anything is possible. That's the first thing you need to train yourself to think, is anything is possible. I'm not suggesting be a wacko. I'm just saying that if you're open-minded and nothing is outside the realm of possibility, then you're going to prepare for it, at least in your own way. And that, I think, is a healthy thing to do. So, what are your goals for any or all of those scenarios? Some of you are just going to want to be able to stay at home but be more prepared in a disaster type situation. That's fine. Some of you are going to want to be able to bug out. It's a term most of you should know. It's a military term. It's a term that a lot of ex-military or wannabe military civilian types say. What it means, bug out, basically means get the heck out of Dodge. An acronym I'm going to use is SHTF. Hits the fan. This is the type of scenario we're talking about. Any of the possibilities I've already said, SHTF. What are your goals? Is it stay at home and be safe and prepared, be able to go without having supplied electricity, heat? Or is it you want to bug out, go off somewhere where you're going to be off the grid, nobody's going to know where you're at, you're going to be safe? Or is there going to be a situation where, okay, I'm going to want to be able to effectively fight back to some extent? And that's something you need to think about. Again, your family, significant other, whatever. You need to, if you're going to get into this, I suggest you discuss it with them, because they may want something else than what you want. Some are not going to be open to the idea or want of it at all, in which case, okay, then you just plan it on your own and fill them in if the time ever comes. God forbid. But I think you bring it up, and if they're open to it, it's something you discuss. You see where they're at, you see where you're at, and you come to whatever agreements or whatever you need to do. So I think that's the first step, is establish your goals and discuss it with anybody that's important enough to you that you're going to be trying to get them in a safe environment when SHTF happens. God forbid again. I will say it again. So those are the 3 types of philosophies. Stay home and be safe and prepared and taken care of. Bug out or fight. Pretty much the material needs, your possessions you're going to need to do that, are all going to be the same. But let's, for the sake of this video, not going too long, let's kind of just put staying at home and being safe and prepared on the back burner, because you can adapt the kits and the setups of the other 2 styles to fit that. But okay, so let's start with bug out. Well, first thing you're going to need, if you're going to bug out, is a place to bug out to. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your private property. You can bug out to a state park, a national forest, just a wilderness area. It depends on where you live. It doesn't have to be in the state you live in, although for a lot of you that is going to be the case, because you want to pick somewhere that you know has a very low density of population. And it's also going to be somewhere that you know has natural food sources, water sources, and there's not a lot of people around, or if there are, you're not going to be easily found. Forest, mountainous areas, they're good places for that. And here's why. Why is because the terrain. It's rough terrain. Unless somebody really wants to find somebody, or you in specific, or whatever, they're not going to go looking in that type of terrain. Especially if you pick somewhere that has, or a vicinity, an area that doesn't have a town for 20 to 50 to 100 miles in any direction. States that are really great about that have mountainous areas with low population areas that don't have cities for a ways. I mean, Alaska, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. I mean, these are places you can go and you can disappear very easily. So, depending on where you live or whatever, or where you've had experiences, maybe you live in Virginia, but you feel that's a little too populated. But say you went hunting with a friend once in Montana. Okay, well, you learned that area. Maybe it's something you should look into more. You can use the internet for a lot of your research. You can find topographical maps. You can look at population maps, demographical maps. You can find this information. It's pretty easy to find. So you need to pick a spot. That's the first step. Is you got to pick a spot. I will just throw out there. I'm not going to throw out a ton of personal information, but I'm from Wyoming. I've got all sorts of options for a spot. I do have one picked out. Another thing about the spot you pick. Don't go blabbing it to everybody. Again, let's not be right-wing, wacko extremists, paranoid conspiracy theorists. But if you're worried about somebody coming to find you, which would be the reason for bugging out, then you don't want a lot of people knowing where you're going. Tell your closest family members. I only told my dad. I talked over with my significant other. My family knows the plan, but outside of my household, only my father knows. And I told him, I said, remember that one spot we did this at? Yeah. Okay, well, if things ever get bad and I just up and disappear, that's where I'll be. That's all he needs to know. He knows exactly where I'm talking about. Down enough that he can narrow it down to 10, 20 miles, but also vague enough that if he wants to not divulge that and he's being questioned, he can do that as well. So it helps out. Next thing you need to look at is what's the climate there? Year round. Does it get hot in the summer? If you're in North America, most likely. Does it get cold in the winter? Again, if you're in North America, I guess that depends on the region. If you're in the northern half, yeah, it's going to get cold and snow in mountains in winter. That's just the way it is. I know some places in the south pretty much just get rain. Temperatures in high 30s, low 40s, don't really get snow much. Great. But you need to know not only the terrain, but the climate, because that's going to help you to have the gear necessary to survive in that environment, and that's the most important thing. Next thing you need to think about is, okay, how am I going to fend for myself and or my family once I'm there? You're going to need weapons. You're going to need survival equipment. You're going to need the knowledge to either take or build a shelter when you get there. Heat, how to keep warm, how to do the basic things to live day-to-day life in the wilderness. And it's not going to be pleasant. Let's just say now we can dump thousands and thousands of dollars into gear. There's still going to be times you're going to be wet and or cold and miserable generally. But so let's not get some Hollywood thought in our heads that, oh, it's going to be easy, it's going to be great, because it's not. It never is. I make a suggestion. Any of you out there bold enough, do what I did. Do what I did at 14 years old. Get some time off from work, whatever. A weekend. What test your limits. But don't exceed your limits too much either. But the area you're talking about, go somewhere near it, or similar to it at least. And make a 2-3 day thing out of it. Get dropped off with just the basics. Really train yourself for this first. Don't get me wrong. Don't just jump out there and do it. But, get exercise, walk, run, whatever, carry a pack. push your limits, see where your body's at physically, and go try it out for a weekend. Take a cell phone in case things get bad. Make sure somebody knows where you're at, whatever. Have a vehicle at a trailhead you know you can get to, but try it out. If you can do it for a couple days, if you take equipment with you, you can most likely do it for longer. So that's one thing. I mean, try it if you will. If that's not something you're willing to do, that's fine too. Just a suggestion that I threw out there. But in the long term, yeah, you're gonna need knowledge and tools to make a shelter or take one with you. You're gonna need means to secure, make, or kill food. Um, Learn about basic farming. Study your climate and what crops can grow in the climate of your bug out zone. Whether it be corn or kale or any other number of fruits or vegetables. Find out what grows naturally, what you can grow, and also find out what kinds of animals are in that area if you don't already know. Um, there's most likely going to be deer, either whitetail or blacktail or mule deer. Could be things like elk, moose, and there's also potential threats: mountain lion, bear, coyotes, wolves. All these things are potential threats. I mean, you could seriously be injured by any one of those animals. And people think, oh, coyotes, no, they can hurt you. Are they likely to? No. Get one hungry enough or cornered, see what it does. I mean, even a fox can mess a person up if it's backed into a corner. So, I mean, we got to be realistic about this. We can't just say, "Oh, I'm just going to pack a few things and this is where I'm going to go and okay, I'm done." No, 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 no. It's like a project. It's like restoring an old vehicle for you guys that are into that sort of thing. It never ends. Even when you go, "Oh, I only need to do this and I'm done," then you decide, "Okay, well now I want to do this." It's similar to that. So you've got your area, you've studied it, you've researched it, um, you've researched what you can grow as far as food. You looked at water sources. Maybe there's fish in those rivers. Okay, good at fishing with just a cane pole. That's great. If you can catch brook trout out of a stream in the mountains, you're good to go for a very good amount of time. I mean, all summer long you can probably catch fish. But you're also going to want to mix up your diet. You're going to want some sort of plant type food, fruit or vegetable, obviously. And you're going to want that on a fairly regular basis, but you're also going to want meat, but you're going to want to vary that, you know. And even just common sense. Who wants to eat, say, deer every night? Yeah, it's great for the first week or two, and then you're probably going to get a little tired of it and want to mix it up. So get some fish, and catch some fish too. You can mix it up, you can bounce back and forth, keeps it fresh, makes it new. It's not as bad. So how are we going to acquire these things? Well, I already discussed for the fishing, a way to make a cheap or very light, small fishing pole is a great idea. There's a lot of collapsible fishing pole kits. You can find them at Walmart. You can find them at any sporting goods store. Those are great. Fly rods that break down. Another great option. Choose your poison. Whichever you prefer, go for it. The other methods of taking animals for food, obviously, pretty narrow list. See, you can make a spear, you can use a bow, or you can use a firearm, or you can learn to make snares and traps. I mean, that's pretty much the gist of your options for taking land-based game animals in North America, and assuming that's where you're at. If you're in South America, I'm not trying to offend you, I'm just trying to be all-inclusive, general. I don't know South America, but I kind of have a general idea of what kind of critters are there. Still, same things should apply. Somewhere in Europe, same thing. So, firearms. Let's get into firearms. You're going to want a multitude. A lot of people try and find just one gun that's going to cover them all around. Okay, for one, I think that's just. I'm not going to say dumb because that's not what I'm trying to go for here. I'm not trying to bash anybody. If that's what you really choose to do, great. But my suggestion is you take a multitude of weapons. For one, use the right tool for the job. Why take just a semi-automatic 308 rifle? You're going to use that big of a bullet on a rabbit, say you're going to hunt rabbit that day? Well, you're going to waste at least half your meat probably, depending on the range. So I suggest a multitude of different types of weapon systems. Number one, I'm going to start at the bottom, work my way up. Knives. Knives, 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 knives. You cannot have enough knives. I've got a collection. Some of them are for you, some of them are just to look at. Personally, I'm not going to get any further into that, but let's say when I go hunting. When I go hunting, I take at least, after everybody in my family unit has at least one on them, I always carry at least one on me and two in a pack. You could break one. One can go dull in the middle of gutting or skinning something, depending on the animal. I mean, an elk's a very large animal. You could dull a knife. I mean, it happens. You can also take a sharpener. That helps too. But I always suggest take multiple knives. Even if you don't carry more than one on you, if you have more than one nearby in a pack or in your survival kit, awesome, great. Next thing I suggest, some sort of a bow, compound, recurve, crossbow. Any of these things will work. Something that you can practice with, get proficient with. I mean, think about it. You can recover your ammo, arrows or bolts, obviously. You can recover them, so you can use them over and over and over again with no need to reload. They're easy to fix if you do mess up, say, a tip or a fletching or a knock. You can fix those things. I think they're a great weapon to have. They're completely silent for the most part. I mean, 90% silent. And you can use them in a multitude of ways. You could, if you're needing to move through an area using stealth, you don't want to be discovered, you can use a bow, still be able to defend yourself, but you're not making a ton of noise, drawing attention. It's awesome. Practice with it, get proficient with it, and I suggest that for all of any of the further weapon systems I'm going to talk about, bow included. Next weapon, I suggest a sidearm, a pistol of some sort. Caliber, whatever you feel comfortable with. Study the ballistics of what you're thinking about getting. If it's 22, learn what you're going to need to do to be able to take down a mid-sized target with it. Not that you're going to have to, but would you rather get out there and have to and not know, or know and not have to? I'd rather know and not have to, personally. But personal preference. Revolver, semi-automatic, whatever your state's laws are, whatever you're comfortable with, fine. But a sidearm. It's a last resort. It's not something you want to use as a primary weapon system. Great tool to have as a backup, though, and I highly recommend it. In later videos, I'll get into what I use, what I have. But for now, we're just going over the basics. Next weapon you need to have. A rimfire rifle, 22. Great. You can hunt rabbits with it. Fox. Coyote if you had to. Raccoons. I mean, small game. It's a great gun. And, if you had to defend yourself with it, it's an option. Something you feel comfortable and proficient with. Practice. Again, practice, practice, practice. I personally would recommend a semi-automatic one, so long as you don't get too trigger happy. But they hold a high capacity ammo. If you need to make follow-up shots, you can do that very quickly. And they're lightweight. And yeah, ammo's cheap. You can carry a ton of ammo. And that's something I want to go back to on the sidearm for a second as well. Get something that you know that the ammo is readily accessible and is within your budget. And buy a lot of it. I'm not saying buy thousands of rounds for, say, a 38 special. I'm saying have 100 or 200 rounds. Enough that you can get going. You can always try and acquire more later, but and if you want to have more, have more. I'm just saying, as a minimum, shoot for at least 100 rounds for your sidearm. 22 for your whatever rimfire cartridge you choose. What doesn't matter. Same thing though, only more. If that's going to be something you use to take down game for food, small game, have a lot of ammo. For one, it doesn't cost hardly anything. For two, it stores awesome, and it lasts a long time. Stock up a few hundred rounds. 300-400 rounds, I'd say, is a good baseline. Next weapon system you're going to want to have, at least in most situations, I would suggest some sort of tactical carbine style rifle. There's lots of good options out there. People are on a budget, and I'm not going to be one of those guys that say, go out and buy a $1,000 AR-15 and then spend another $500-600 in accessories. I'm not going to tell you that. There are much cheaper options. You don't need all the accessories. You need something that you are proficient with, that you can survive with. You need to think of how you want to be able to engage. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. You could be attacked by, let's say it's an anarchy situation. You bug out, you're in the mountains, somebody finds your camp and they're going to want your supplies because they were too lazy to prepare like you did. So at that point, you're going to have to defend yourself. So you're going to need a weapon system that can do that. Typically, most human engagements, non-military, are going to be less than 100 yards. If you're going to get an AR-15, I do recommend you go with the 5.56 or chambered version. It will also shoot civilian 223, and it's a great round. It's cheap, great trajectory, great ballistics, and you can do a lot with the system. All accessories practically will go on an AR-15. They're great systems. Not what I'm choosing for my kit, though. To be honest with you, my philosophy is everything, all the weapon systems I've discussed up to this point, but for my tactical carbine style rifle, I'm going to go with a pistol caliber carbine. I only want something that can get me out of a tight spot. For longer range engagements, I'm going to utilize the next weapon system I'm going to say should be in every kit for every one of the philosophies. And that is a battle rifle / hunting rifle. Again, something you can be proficient with, that you can get a lot of ammo for, or that's cheap enough, or that you can reload it easily, whatever. Civilian hunt rifles, nothing wrong with those. Lever actions, I think that's a great option. They're accurate out to past 100 yards. You can take big game with them, and you could also use them for long-range human engagements if the need arose. Nothing wrong with that. Bolt action, I will say, does tend to be more accurate. So if you don't have a lot of knowledge on firearms, I will tell you this. When you're talking about your long-range gun, as far as accuracy is concerned, the semi-autos, physically, I mean, I'm not going to say semi-autos are crap at long range. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is statistics and science, from what I've seen, have proven that out of those three options for long-range engagements, the semi-auto is the least accurate. Lever action is mid-ground. Bolt action is the most accurate. And it may be nominal. It depends on the gun you get, how much money you want to put into it. That's fine. But again, I recommend something that you can either get a hold of a lot of ammo, reload, or it's cheap, it's readily accessible. For my intents and purposes, an old bolt-action military surplus rifle. In my case, the Mosin Nagant. It's a weapon system I've learned thoroughly. I can do all my own gunsmithing on it, short of chopping the barrel down. But I've had that gun apart so many times that I know everything you can do to one. There's plenty of videos here on YouTube. I'll probably do one video down the road with my Mosin, what all I did to it, what all you need to know to be able to do exactly what I did to it. But we'll get into that later. That's my personal choice. And so now you kind of see the whole picture come together. In my kit, if I'm talking just human engagements, if I have the time, the opportunity, it's more than 100 yards, I'm using that Mosin. There's also a guy out here, he's got a couple videos here on YouTube, he's got it patented, he's trying to go into production, a 10 round magazine extension for the Mosin goes from 5 to 10. But even then, even at 5 rounds in a magazine and one in the chamber, that's 6 rounds. Most hunting rifles, depending on caliber, only hold 4. So right there, you kind of already have an advantage. And you can make a Mosin into a slick little rifle if you know what you're doing and you pick a good model to work with, a baseline model to work with. The ammo for it, it's cheap and it's everywhere. If you want lead tip, like hunting rounds for hunting, I use mine for deer season. I get more proficient with the rifle. I get to carry it around and see what it's like to lug, make sure it's not something too unrealistic for me. And it's fun. I like it. I love my setup on my Mosin. You guys will get to see it, I promise. But I went to a gun show recently. I bought 240 rounds for $75. And that was with stripper clips included. I wouldn't have paid that much for just the rounds, but I wanted the stripper clips. These all came with stripper clips. Well worth the money. Especially considering the fact that they threw in the wood case. So I can nail that shut. I can throw it in my storage. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's going to be fine. If something ever needs to happen, goes from my cellar into my camper or my truck or whatever, out the door. Done. No problems. But become proficient with all your weapon systems. And like I said, I highly suggest something that a caliber that is cheap. That's why the military surplus stuff is great, because you can get most of the ammos for cheap. Study it. Study up though. 303 British, not as easy to come by. Some of the like Mauser ammo, I think it's what, the 8mm, isn't as easy to come by. Don't quote me on that, but I believe I read it somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize. I don't know much about the Mausers. I went straight to the Mosin. Did a lot of research. Was like, no, that's the gun I want. But even for your tactical carbine, whether you go with 5.56 or 7.62 by 39 or whatever, 7.62 NATO, doesn't matter. Find something that you know you're going to be able to either acquire or make or whatever. A lot of ammo. Not you need to take that much with you. A couple hundred rounds, 300-400 rounds. 2 to 5, I would say, would be a good baseline. But make sure that you can get more of it. That's a great tool right there. A lot of guys say, well, I want this specific gun, and it's say 7mm WSM, Winchester short mag. It's a great round. It's a great hunting round. But how much does it cost now, and how readily available is it? Say anarchy breaks out, there's riots in the streets. You're gonna walk into a sporting goods store, and they're probably gonna be cleaned out. So that might not be the best option. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. Educate yourself, form your own opinions. I'm saying what works for me and what my opinions are. So I like the military rounds, surplus or current, or past or current, it doesn't matter. For my system, I mentioned before I was going to go with a pistol chambered carbine. I'm going with 9mm. That's what my sidearm is. So the position that puts me into is going out in the bush, a bug out scenario. Let's say I only have to carry two. Well, okay, with the 22, 3 different types of ammunition. 22, 9mm, and 7.62 by 54R. That's awesome. You don't have a bunch of ammo to keep track of. It's easy to keep a good count where you're at. I think that's a good philosophy and a good setup to have. Maybe not specifically my weapons. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the fewer calibers you have to carry out in the field, the better off you're going to be. Some firearms you can put a different caliber round into it, and you don't want to do that unless it's made to also shoot that round. For example, this happened to my dad when I was young. Was out hunting, had his 30-06. His best friend was with him, was shooting a 270. Rounds bounced around in the truck. My dad needed a round in a pinch, grabbed the first one he seen. Looked like a 30-06 shell to him. He was in a high stress situation trying to get a very large buck on a very short time frame. Put a 270 round into it. Luckily, nothing happened to him or the gun, except for the round jammed in the bore, about halfway down the barrel. Could have been a lot worse, but you don't want that to happen. He probably got off lucky, and it could have been a lot worse. So I'm not going to delve into that anymore. But so the fewer types of ammo you have to carry, the better off you're going to be. It's just easier to deal with. So come up with a system that makes sense to you. I'm not going to say what's the best or what's the worst. I'm not doing it. You're going to find a system that works for you, but you keep that mindset in mind. Fewest calibers possible is a great way to go. Another way you could do it, only carrying 3 ammo or types of ammunition, is your sidearm could be a 22 long rifle. Your rimfire rifle could be a 22 long rifle. That's one type of ammo. For your tactical carbine, you could carry, let's say, an AR-15, 5.56. Okay, so that's 2. And then your long-range gun, some sort of military battle rifle or a hunting rifle, whatever round it is. Say 308. 308's common, civilian and military use, pretty readily available, great round. We know it's reliable. We know it has great ballistics and trajectory and power. You could use that for hunting. You can use it for long-range human engagements. You can use it for a multitude of situations. Great round. Cool. So that's your setup. Still, only 3 types of ammo to carry. 4, there's nothing wrong with 4 types of ammo. If that's what you're comfortable with or you want to do, great. It's awesome. So that's what you're going to do. And that's the important thing, is have the knowledge to know kind of the direction you should be going in, but then making it work for you. Because if you go out there with somebody else's system and okay, let's say I said, you take this gun in this caliber, you take this gun in this caliber, you take this gun in this caliber, and this gun in this caliber, and you buy these specific models, they're high priced, whatever, and you go out there and you don't like them. Well, then you just put a bunch of money into something for nothing. And I would hate to be the one who said, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. And a bunch of people go, dude, you're a jerk. I hated this stuff. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. I will tell you what I use, and I will give you a layout, a stencil, if you will, for what I think people should have. The next part of that bug out type philosophy is, okay, do you have a family unit? Do you have a spouse? Do you have a significant other? Do you have kids? It's not just you bugging out. It's your whole family. So that's the reason I said earlier, discuss it with your significant other. Get on the same page if they're open to that mindset. You'll really be surprised how many of them will be. They'll support you, and so long as you don't come off in a crazy way going, oh, I want to be prepared for the zombie apocalypse. So we're going to go here, and we're going to carry this and this and this. Just lay it out real basic. You know, the way I have in these videos, you should be fine. My wife was like, I trust you, I support you. What do you want to do? Okay, I'm down with it. But then again, my wife and all of my children are sportsmen. They're shooters. They're willing to learn and do pretty much anything on that mindset that I'm willing to teach them. So that's great. I got off lucky. But here's another thing. You know, people are on limited budgets, especially with the economy these days. But a lot of guys will say, oh, you know, if you're going to have an assault rifle, you have to get this one. And they're talking, you know, $800 to sometimes $2,500 weapon systems. Okay, how many people are you going to arm with that? Well, most guys just themselves. They're going to buy a sidearm for them and a rifle or two for them, and that's it. Well, okay, that's great. What happens when you get hurt? What happens when you go down? Get sick? Whatever. Your family at that point is then defenseless. I think that's the wrong answer. They need to be trained and taught at least safe use and responsible use of those weapon systems. Because you can't say that you're always going to be healthy and able to defend and or provide for your family in a bug out or combat situation. You just can't. If they're open to it, start training them too. My philosophy on this is I'm not going to be a one-man army out there. But I've got a wife and 4 kids, so I've got a small squad. Rather than spending a bunch of money on just weapons, just 2 or 3 weapons, really nice weapons for just myself, I'm going to go with a little bit cheaper weaponry that I still know is reliable. Don't buy a piece of crap that you don't know. I mean, study it, try it out in the field, borrow somebody's, whatever. But I'm going to buy multiple cheaper weapons and arm the entire family, or at least 3 of us. At least myself, my wife, and my oldest child. He's in his teens, and he's a good hunter and a very good shooter. So I trust him. I'll put a gun in his hands and tell him, have my back. You betcha. Raise that kid, you know, from day one. So I know what his capabilities are, and I know what his mindset and his responsibility level is. Do the same thing. Know your family. Know what they're open to. Know what their capabilities are. And try and help them to be prepared too. It's not just about you, and you're not going to defend them all on your own all the time. So that's what I recommend. Go with a little bit cheaper weapon systems that are more affordable and arm multiple people in your family. So now for my family unit, so let's say my example, I'm now talking about multiple weapon systems going out in the bush. Okay, well, it's more stuff to carry. Yeah, but it's not just me carrying it, so it's okay. So now we're talking about at least 2 long-range rifles, at least 2 tactical carbines, and 2 sidearms. And that's actually not even everything I have going, but that's just at a bare minimum, plus 2 bows. We have 2 bows. I also have, other than my one rimfire cartridge rifle, that the kids have one. It's short little stubby 22 LR for them. Plus they have a 22 LR sidearm. So, like I said, that's going to have 3 of us covered. I'm actually working into purchasing my new tactical carbines right now. So I want to have examples show those for a while, but we're going to get into that. You guys are probably going to hate me when I get to the brands I like video because I'm out there. It's okay. So we've got the weapon systems gone over. General survival gear. Great things to have. MREs or canned foods with long shelf life. Kerosene heaters. Generators. Gas cans with gas. Chainsaws. Axes. Don't put yourself out in the field without the gear to take care of yourself if you have the means to have it. Buy that stuff up. Go to garage sales, pawn shops, any place. See something's on sale, go look at them. Never hurts window shop. Never hurts. Great stuff to have. Another thing I suggest you have for both the bug out and the really bad SHTF situation of we have to fight in a war. I mean, we're talking not the Russians, but Red Dawn style, whether it's the Muslims or whatever. I'm not going to talk bad about one group, but you know what I'm talking about. Is a monetary system, liquid assets, physical stuff to barter with. Because if something goes down like that and a lot of the infrastructure of this nation falls apart, or whatever nation you're from, you're still going to want to need a way, or want to have a way to acquire things without giving up any of the valuable possessions like firearms or equipment that you're bringing with you. Money might not be worth a damn. I suggest investing in a little bit or a lot of, depending on whatever your preference is, some form of precious metal or gemstone or something like that that you could, that is worth something, that you can know what it is worth, and that you can transport easily. Great options. They call it junk silver. You go to any of the websites that sell precious metals online. Junk silver is just a bag of old silver coin. I don't know enough about them because I know what after 1967 silver coins, the least amount or the smallest amount of any one metal in them is silver. So I didn't want to get into junk coins. I'm researching right now getting into 1 ounce silver bars. They're relatively cheap. They're in the $30 per bar. They're stamped. They're proven. You know that they're really what they say they are and what they're worth. And 1 ounce. It's not too heavy. You carry 10 of those, 20 of those, whatever. Or you store them somewhere. You take them out ahead of time. You bury them. It's great. You have a way to trade. Silver is always going to be worth something. So is gold. Titanium or platinum may always be worth something. Diamonds are always going to be worth something. So pick something. Pick something that works for you, that you know or can know or get to know, and that you can acquire. Great stuff. Hold on for 1 second. Where did I set them down? There they are. No, sorry guys. I smoke. You're going to see me smoking in my videos. If it offends you, yeah, too bad. You don't have to watch them. I'm just trying to help people out. So, anywho, back to the subject at hand. So you've got a monetary system or something you can barter with. You've got a way to provide food. You've got a way to defend yourself. You've got a place to go. Hopefully you've thought of, okay, am I going to build a shelter? Am I going to take a camper here? Am I going to build a cabin? Is it my land? Whatever. Work it out. Have it well thought out, well planned out. Maybe on paper, if you keep a private journal, something you only know you have, or you're the only one who knows where it is or how to get into it. Like I said, not saying be super paranoid. I'm saying be realistic. Say you bug out and you have everything written in a journal or a notepad sitting on your coffee table. Well, somebody comes to track you down because all of a sudden your family disappeared and you don't want to be found. Well, you just left your whole list. So they're going to start to have ideas if you didn't put your spot on there, let's say, at least places to look for you, because to kerosene heater, they're going, okay, well, so orange is going to get cold. Does it get cold here? We'll work on that. Another thing on a bug out plan, that ever becomes a case, or even a forced combat type situation. Junk your cell phone, even with the location stuff turned off, even with the phone turned off. Governments can track a cell phone. If that's a concern to you, destroy it or leave it at home. It's not something you want to be carrying around with you. If you want communication, great little thing to get. Go to the pawn shops or yard sales, find the small two-way radios, Midlands, Motorola's, great brands, or handheld CB radios, vehicle-mounted CB radios, great things to have. Great communication, low cost. You can stock up on batteries ahead of time. It's great. I mentioned vehicle a minute ago. It wasn't something I was necessarily going to remember to hit on in this video because I don't have the greatest of memory, but it brings me to a good point. Have a vehicle you trust. Now, this can accommodate to your budget. You can ship this around. Different strokes for different folks. Let's talk about the options. If you've got the money and you feel the best bet is a newer vehicle, great. Or let's say you have a large camper that you plan on hauling out to a bug out area or something, a wilderness area. Well, then you're going to need a vehicle that can pull it. Okay, again, get what works for you. Four-wheelers, side-by-sides, ATVs of any sort. Great ideas to invest in. They can get in tight spots that a pickup can't get into, or a car. So, and a lot of times they're all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. They'll get around in the muck and the snow. Good idea. Another thing that's good to get into, though, if you have the mindset, kind of like we talked about with the ammo, have something that you know how to work on, that you know parts or fuel or whatever is readily available, older vehicles can be great for that. If you can, let's say you have an old Chevy Blazer sitting in your backyard, get it fixed up good, get it running good, make sure it's not all rusted out or falling apart or anything like that. It's a great bug out vehicle. They do great off-road. They do okay on economy. You can carry extra fuel cans. They can still pull a trailer. Good vehicle for that situation. Just plan ahead. Figure out what works for you. But that's something else to think about. It's how are you going to get to where you want to go, or what's going to accommodate your transportation needs. Something to think about. Winding down this video now, I think pretty much covered just about everything on the general equipment type list that I wanted to go over. Back to philosophies. So we went over from this video from a bug out situation type standpoint, but at times I talked about the forced combat type situation. The kit we went over in this video will cover both. If you go with the different types of things that I said, you're going to be covered, especially weapon systems. If you have one of all those weapon systems, you're going to be covered pretty well. You learn how to apply them to to what situations they're going to work best in, and only apply them to situations. Use the right tool for the job. You're going to be pretty well set. So, and then if it's the third philosophy where okay, I just want to be able to stay at home in a disaster type situation. Superstorm Sandy just came through. Earthquakes, whatever, natural disaster, tornado. Okay, whatever, whichever it is. Same things apply. A generator can power your house, or at least a part of it, so you have some light. Kerosene heater, got to ventilate it, but still can provide some heat. If the power goes out, where are you going to invest in a good electric heater and run it off your generator? Still a good secondary source or something to use for money or trading, I should say. Another good idea in that situation. If you don't know how long the power's going to be out, well, the banks are out of power, the banks are shut down. Probably can't get your cash out. Say you got some gold saved up. You can take that gold down to a pawn shop, cash in hand. You can go buy groceries, whatever you need. A little bit of backup food. We've all seen how people act in these situations because they weren't prepared. They panic. You go to the grocery store, things are out. There's lines out the wazoo. I love that word, wazoo. Back to the subject at hand, guys. Sorry. Stock up on, some good food with some good shelf life to it. Stock up on toilet paper. The necessities, things that you have to get by from day to day. Water. Bottled water, or a way to purify water, or you got to have water. That's bottom line. Think that pretty much should just about cover everything for the philosophy video. We're going to wrap up now. Again, I'll say it. I said at the end of the last video, and I told you that I'm probably going to say it at the end of every video. Please subscribe, post, comment, ask questions. That's all I got for this time. Wolf out.